Hey everybody, Dave Wisnowski here from the Pro Wrestling X Project. Thank you very much for tuning in and checking out our first little experimental podcast we're trying to do here. Right away, Eric the Web Nerd and I will be discussing, why we give a crap about wrestling games in the first place, why we're doing Pro Wrestling X, a little bit about Pro Wrestling X coming down the pipeline after a very long 10-year wait in the oven, so to speak. So please have a listen. Feel free to leave any questions or comments you may have. We really look forward to hearing from you, and I'll be back right away with Web Nerd Eric. Thanks for tuning in. So, of all the dumb crap for anyone to give a crap about, why do you give a crap? I'm using crap a lot. about wrestling games. People our age are supposed to be into like football and wine lists and stuff like that.
Listen, how long have I known you now? This is like my ninth year with the project right now.
Yeah.
And so 9
years. But by internet troll math, that's 20 years. I think you've been.
That's exactly right. The game should be done by now. I hear him. I'm totally with you. I don't know, dude. Like I said, we've talked about this we've talked about this quite a bit. I think it goes beyond like the simple act of wrestling games. I think we all get like really focused on like the features and tag teams and body types and stats and all this stuff. But I don't know, man. For me, it was like that was always secondary because I always had a pretty good time playing wrestling games, even if they sucked, because I was playing with like my brothers. And growing up, because I was just talking to my brother last night. He called me up. It was my birthday, and it's my brother out in Portland, and we were talking about how, like how I got even started in this project and why. He's like, so tell me about this game and why it's like, why should I care? And it's like, well, dude, a lot of us, in the internet community and of a certain age, we started with like NES Pro Wrestling. And we have worked our way up through like the food chain as these releases, and it's kind of like charted our experiences growing up. I mean, like I said, for me, the first one I ever played was a combination of, I think it was, NES Pro Wrestling, and then like WrestleFest, on the arcades. Like those were the two that I was like, oh my god, this is so awesome. We can do all this different stuff, and like I said, I don't know how much you ever played the original Pro Wrestling, but we played it quite a bit, and I remember like popping the first time that we figured out how to do that stupid plancha to the outside. We couldn't figure out how to do it for the life of us. We're not going to read the instruction manuals or anything like that. So,
back in the day, that was
major pop.
Back in the day, we were raised, pretty, what would I say, fiscally responsible middle class. My family did not. We did not own an NES. So I remember when I had like money to myself, I would go down to the video rental store where you'd rent VHS tapes for $10 a day or something ridiculous back then, right? And I'd actually I'd save up for my $100 cash deposit and I'd rent an NES, and take pro wrestling home for a few days and love the crap out of it. And then during lunch breaks in school, there was an arcade across from our school at the mall, and they had Mat Mania, which was pretty much just like NES Pro Wrestling. It's like with better graphics, right? Oh man, $20 allowance I would get every few weeks, and it just went straight into that machine. But I was thinking the other day, wrestling games, I think why I like them so much, and I was just realizing this lately, they were really in a way kind of the first sandbox kind of action games in that, you weren't in a maze eating dots and you had to stay in a certain thing, or you didn't have to climb the freaking building like Donkey Kong. In a wrestling game, really, you were free, in a good one at least, to kind of play it however you wanted to play it. You know what I mean? Like it was
absolutely.
It was like an open world game, even if the world only was really the space between the ropes and the turnbuckles, right?
Well, and you know what? I'm willing to bet that, and I said I'm willing to bet that I'm not alone in this, but for me, it's like the rise of pro wrestling video games also kind of happened to like parallel my rise in like pro wrestling in general.
For sure.
I think I started watching pro wrestling as probably a significant amount of our fan base did when it was just like that first WrestleMania had just hit, like WrestleMania 1, 2, and 3. Like right in that neck of the woods where you had like, the British Bulldogs and Hogan and Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, and it's like the rise of these wrestling games Because, I mean, it was funny when you mentioned the video store. We totally started doing that because of the piece of crap game that was WrestleMania for the NES. And we bought that, and we saved up all of our money. Me and my two brothers, we saved up all of our money, and we had been reading all the Nintendo Powers for months that, this game was going to be like the greatest thing since sliced bread, and we're like all jacked up after pro wrestling, on the Nintendo that, man, I can't wait to be able to play as like Bam Bam Bigelow and like Randy Savage and all this stuff. And then when we went and I think we all pulled our money, and then we bought it, and we got home, and it was like, just this steaming pile of crap. We're like, why the hell does Andre keep turning different shades of red and all this stuff? And what was that? Was that a foot that just got thrown into the ring? Is that like a power? What the hell is this? And so ever since then, we we never bought a wrestling game without first going down to the video store and making sure that we could like play it for a weekend first to make sure that we were like, never get burned by that ever again. So that cracks me up, man.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember, I went through the phase where it was all NES and pro wrestling and Mat Mania, and then a few years went by and I didn't play any wrestling games for a while. I went off to college and then I came back to visit. And my brother was like, dude, you got to try this Nintendo 64 game out, WCW NWO Revenge, right? And holy crap,
your eyeballs bug out of your mind when you see that kind of thing.
Well,
it was awesome.
It was so fun. And yeah, back then, before I knew anything about making wrestling games, not like I know a ton even yet, but back then, I didn't understand how a game could be so unbelievably fun to play. And it was complicated and it was deep, but you didn't have to read the manual to pick up that game. And
this thing, you figured out your move slots and it's up and B. Up and down and B. Done. Cool. That's all I need to know.
Exactly. And everything just worked well enough to have some fun. But then, we're playing this game like, wow, we're having a lot of fun. And we got, we played it for like, weeks straight. And then, he was like, let's go try another wrestling game and see what we can find, And I was like, yeah, okay, but make sure whatever you do, we have to get wrestling games made by, let's look at the box here. THQ. Yeah. So,
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, let's make sure we get a game made by THQ because their games are awesome. So we go to the video game store, and on the shelf is a wrestling game with THQ in the corner, and it's WCW Nitro.
Oh, for real? That was like that was your experience?
So
like,
yeah,
to that.
So your story is exactly parallel with mine, except we brought home WCW Nitro, and I mean, it's like Voldemort. I almost don't want to speak its name and make it real.
I never even played that one because that was
you can't. It's unplayable. It's unplayable.
Real.
It's not even fun. I mean,
so you didn't go through like the whole like you went from like NES all the way, and like your next step into the wrestling game world was like WCW NWO.
Dude,
you missed a whole like generation of like Nintendo games. There was like Tecmo Pro Wrestling.
Oh, Tecmo, I had Tecmo, yeah, actually,
which had the cut scenes. Like that was the first time I ever, which was actually kind of annoying. Like you'd be sitting there like in the middle of the match and you'd go to do a move and then all of a sudden like the whole screen would just start flashing and like animations would pop up all over the place. You're like, what the hell's happening here? But
was that Tecmo? I thought that was another game. Maybe you're
right. That was Tecmo. That I'm 99% sure, and I'm sure there's somebody out there that's going to like totally correct me if I'm wrong. But I thought Tecmo was the one that had the cut scenes and like the lower third of the screen was saved for like commentary.
Yeah, I remember the commentary guy. Yeah, he was awesome, man. But Tecmo 2 kind of played like Fire Pro, which is really neat. I didn't know it at the time.
A little bit, yeah, because then you had, I'm trying to remember you had Saturday Night Slam Masters, which was like almost like a Street Fighter, like it was like a fighting game clone. It was like set with like in pro wrestling style, but it behaved a lot more like a fighting game.
That's funny, yeah. I mean, I went for a while after the NES because, I'm trying to take care of myself, put myself through school, and, I didn't have a Nintendo, a Super Nintendo.
Yeah, because my brothers got a Super Nintendo when I went to college, and so I missed like a whole. We never really got, like I said, it was about all of us playing together, and so we never really got into some of the Super Nintendo, like those Royal Rumbles and some of those kind of games. We never played those, but I remember the first time that I saw something that behaved like WCW NWO was like. My buddy had a PlayStation, and I think it was Virtual Pro Wrestling.
Oh yeah.
Where you had that model where like the 3D characters. I remember just like there was no there were no licenses, so you just had like kind of generic. I think that's what it was, like generic Japanese wrestlers, but like the fluidity of like being able to do all these moves and like, oh my god, it's in 3D. Like that just blew me away.
Yeah, I got that exactly. You know, that's when I got back into it too. In fact, what happened? I went to I had no internet back then, and I don't really run with any kind of gaming crowd, at least back in the day. So I had no idea that WrestleMania 2000 had even been made until it had been out for a couple weeks.
Really?
Again, same old story. I'm at the video rental store in Vancouver there, and I see, oh, here's a THQ wrestling game, WrestleMania 2000. I look on the back, and I'm like, oh my god, this is made, because by then I had figured out that a video game developer like Aki, who worked for THQ, the publisher, they were the ones responsible for the game. So when I saw that WrestleMania 2000 Aki game, I rented it immediately, of course, got it home, and then Create a Wrestler. Oh my god! So there went my grocery money for the week. I went and bought a Nintendo 64 brand new, the Watermelon Transparent Edition. I still have it somewhere. So,
no, you didn't. You had a Watermelon Nintendo 64.
Yeah, it's
Dude,
just
I cannot
up,
look
man.
at you like that. See, my problem was we always like subscribed to that Nintendo Power magazine, and that was just like the ultimate in like PR and press release, and they'd get you hyped up for these games for months. So I was jacked for all of these games before they even came out, and you had I don't remember the exact order and all these things. You had like NWO Revenge, you had what was the one that you finally was able to play? As like with like the Raven and the Flock and all that stuff. Basically the high water mark for
WCW game, that was Revenge. Yeah.
So what am I? Oh, it was World Tour.
World Tour? Yeah, that came before then. Yeah.
I had that one, and then we had Revenge. Like Revenge was like the No Mercy of WCW. That was like at the high water mark for WCW. That game.
There's never been a better one. Although I was talking to a guy in Vancouver for a while, and they actually were in pre-production for a while on another WCW game with Aki, because there was some mess up with the licensing or whatever, and that all fell apart. But yeah, there was going to be another one after Revenge. It ended up being, I forget. There was a whole big licensing schmozzle, and Acclaim got the license for WCW or ECW, and then they lost the license.
Oh yeah.
So they made Legends of Wrestling instead, but they still had separately licensed Guerrero and RVD, and that's why they were in Legends of Wrestling. You know, like it's pretty.
Which one was that? Was that the one that would behave like the Acclaim ECW game, or was that like Revenge?
Well,
I never played that
Revenge, but the Legends of Wrestling was a whole new, supposedly next gen kind of deal.
Okay, that's that's right. I do remember that. It's funny. I remember looking at that roster going, holy crap.
Well, it's funny because talking to someone who worked on that game, now they had, here's a story that we can all relate to. They got halfway through building it, and then the money ran out, and they had to release it. So she said it was pretty funny because they had animated Hulk Hogan walking to the ring, and you know how he leans over and like slaps the hands of the fans as he walks down the aisle. Except they didn't actually get around to animating the fans slapping his hands back. So there's Hogan just slapping air as he walks down the aisle.
Outstanding. I never played that one. I kind of got, like I said, I got really obsessed with, like I said, with Revenge, and then No Mercy, obviously. And now let me ask you this: did you ever play the game with like the stock characters, or did you, like for me, I never played the stock characters at all. It was always the first thing I do when I'd open up the game is create a wrestler and then go through this stuff. I would never pick like a real wrestler to do any of that stuff with.
You know what? I think I immediately jumped in and played a few guys that I was interested in playing, or had never played really another game before. Like No Mercy, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was the first game with Kurt Angle, and you had the Dudleys in there, and of course the big thing was you can do the 3D double team move. Oh, I had to try that. But yeah, I was all about the Creator Wrestler. I stayed up so many late nights, Creator Wrestler, and such a nerd. I even have my little book, a list of all the guys I wanted to make.
Really? I never quite went that far. Well,
I got so excited. You see, I grew up on Stampede Wrestling, and we'll never get a Stampede Wrestling game, so I had to turn No Mercy into Stampede Wrestling. So I was making, Bret Hart, British Bulldog, Dynamite
Okay,
Kid.
so that's interesting, because I never the whole simulating other wrestlers never even occurred to me. What I would always do is create like extremes. I would create the 450-pound, 6'11" flyer that was able to do like all these lucha moves, but yet he couldn't be body slammed. So for me, it was like the best of both worlds. Like you had this mesomorph, but you didn't have any limitations on like the stats. And so this guy could be like a mega high flyer luchador style, and he would just seeing some giant mesomorph do like these ultra mega backflips off the top rope was way too much for me to go with. And it's to be the same thing where I had like a God, I'll annihilate my credibility right now. I put like Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the game. And she was just like this little girl, but she was like an ass beater. She would just go in and just like torch everybody. I gave her all these mega power moves and everything, and it's like, yeah, I'll even admit it. I don't care. And then my brothers would cut loose and they would make all these weird characters, and oh yeah, it was just a riot. It never even dawned on me to make anybody like even remotely serious. We would make everybody like the ugliest possible. They'd all have the worst entrances. We always had like the mega generic music, and some of like, we would mix up the combos. We had like the mega generic music with like Mark Henry's visuals or something like that. It would just make like no sense at all. It was like this disco music, and then you'd have like these cut scenes of like, Mae Young and stuff. It's like, okay, dude, we got to step back away from this. But
yeah, it was fun as hell, man. I played the hell out of that game. I mean, like you say, I filled up memory cards with all the created wrestlers. And yeah, I made everyone. I think I even made my mom in it so she could beat up Mae Young or something. I don't remember.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding. That was more in like a line like so. And the other thing that I noticed is we would. Like I said, I would rarely play that game by myself. It was more about like me and like my one brother had moved out to the coast before then, but me and my other brother, we would sit there and we would play like versus teams. Like we would never go against each other because he would always just annihilate me. Like I love playing these games, but I've never been good at any of them. And so when I would play against him, it was just like, it was no fun. He would just like annihilate me. And so what we would end up doing is, we just go in and just like take out all of our frustrations in the world on like Billy Gunn and X-Pac. Just like our least favorite wrestlers, and occasionally we throw in like Mae Young and stuff like that. But it was just like setting up 20 minutes, anything goes, no count outs, and just the whole goal was to be able to put X-Pac through the table on the outside, off the lat.
Every game has to have a punching bag. I remember when the studios opened in Vancouver and we were, working on Pro Wrestling X out there, Ric Flair was our punching bag. No matter what game we were looking at for reference, pick Ric Flair and make it happen. I remember we were researching blood, like how to make blood work in the game. And yeah, that was one of the interns' job was sit here with this controller and don't stop until Ric Flair is bleeding.
That's outstanding. Not a bad one to pick because dude juiced in just about every match in that era. So
yeah, exactly. So that was a lot of fun. I think my other big markout kind of moment in a wrestling game was I was playing. I think it was WrestleMania 2000, and I created myself and my brother, and we were going through the story mode, or I was going through story mode, and whenever there was a tag team match, the game was set so that my brother would be my tag team partner, right? And I remember I sucked at the game at first, so I kept losing all of our tag team matches, right? And then about 20 minutes or about 3 or 4 matches into the game, all of a sudden, music starts playing, and my brother walks out to the ring with a microphone. I'm like, what the hell is happening? Like, I'd never seen a cutscene in this game yet at this point. I didn't even know cutscenes happened in wrestling games. My brother walks out to the ring with a microphone, and he starts spewing off about how he's sick and tired of being partnered with such a loser.
No way.
Yeah, and he's tired of losing, and he challenges me to a one-on-one match right now. And I think my jaw is on the floor in my living room going, what the hell, this wrestling
what
game
a twist, what a swerve.
Yeah, it's come to life. Like, I was just amazed at first this game actually kept track of me losing. And then worked in a freaking cutscene to reflect that I had been losing and my partner goes against me because of it. And it was like, that's, I mean, I'd already loved this game. But at that point, I was just like, we're driving to wherever Aki is and we're giving them all of our money right now. Take my money.
Well, see, that's the trick is, like, I don't even feel like ashamed to admit any of this stuff because I remember, like I said, and I think that's kind of what, it's what drew me to the project in the first place is that I don't know. I said I don't get that same sense of total mark out moments with any of the new stuff. Now, granted, I haven't played a lot of the new ones just because, like I said, now it's, when you reach a certain age, it's hard to keep, getting up to date with the console arms race and all this kind of stuff. But to me, it's like, yeah, this is back when like video games were fun and you could just like completely like mark out and it was totally cool. You know what I mean? And other people, like, you get on the internet and that's one thing that was awesome when I found this project is like, holy crap, there are other people out there that like care about this stuff too, because I kind of thought I was the only one. And it's kind of cool that you have like permission to mark out about a lot of these features and this stuff,
It is funny. I mean, I've definitely noticed in doing this project, and it seems to have picked up in the last few months, thank God, for some reason, but I'm constantly getting email now from people going, I've been following you guys since you started, and I've never even bothered contacting you before, but I just wanted to let you know how cool it is that you guys are going after this style of game that I haven't played since Nintendo 64, and no one's made one yet and still haven't seen it, and there's lots of us like this out here waiting for you guys to finish, right? So it's kind of neat. I think wrestling gamers know the difference between like a current SmackDown game and something else like Fire Pro or No Mercy or whatever. I mean, there is a difference. You don't know it if you don't know wrestling games. It all looks the same to you. It's like a lot of people who don't like music are like Rush and Metallica sound the same to me. But any fan of either band will hang you, right? And it's the same with wrestling games. To most gamers, if you're just if you're a first person shooter kind of fan, you look at all wrestling games and you can't tell them apart. You play them, it's just a wrestling game, But there is something different now. There is something very tangibly different between the games now and the way they used to be. And fingers crossed, hopefully we knew what it was or know what it is.
And that's I think that's, and we've talked about this from like day one about how we're not a game studio that got hired to produce a wrestling game. By one of the major, it's not like some of these other companies that just like land these contracts and then they have to go figure out what a wrestling game is supposed to be like. And, all the graphics have to be awesome and look at this rendering and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. It's just, it's different when, you get someplace like Aki that really understood in its DNA, like what made an awesome wrestling game. And that's why I've always like been attracted to this project is because like, we're going to know if it's fun, like immediately. We know the stuff to look for. And I think so many of the developers, and I think that's probably a case of video games in general now. It just seems like it's about the screenshot and the trailer and the pre-rendered cutscenes. And that's what gets put in the commercial, and like the gameplay and all that stuff kind of gets forgotten about,
Well, yeah, and they don't get why something might be broken or not fun. Now, granted, I mean, we are and have been for a long time a very, very small, right at the moment, non-funded indie game company, right? We can't afford to do everything we want to do or fix everything we want to fix. But it's surprising when I look at some games in the past that are clearly broken. For instance, you can stomp a guy as he's standing back up, so then you can spam the stomp for the entire match until he's dead. And you got to think, like, how can anyone making this game not get that is not fun? That is broken.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So, knock on wood, hopefully the fact that we can kind of tell when it's broken, even though we can't always fix it when it's broken, hopefully that kind of shines through and people at least look at it and say, hey, these guys kind of get it. I remember showing a prototype of our game 5 years ago. This was back when the studio was looking to partner with other publishers or whatnot, and I gave a presentation of the prototype we had done at the time, and I just walked them through it for like literally 2 minutes, where I said, this is what we think is fun, how, strikes are here, grapples are here, strong is like this, weak is like this, and I remember there's a boardroom table about 10 guys all around, and this one guy stands up and he points at the screen and he's like, these guys effing get it. And he starts spewing off games like, Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 and Fire Pro. I'm like, I don't know who you are, buddy, but you just made my day. Thank you very much. He was
it just, those games were like, they were fun to play and you could pick it up. I mean, that's the trick is like, again, like I remember, like, was it the ECW game that came out for Acclaim that like, I was like so jacked for, like everything was like, maybe I'm mixing up some of the genres, but like everything was like button combinations.
Yep.
There was no like up and B or, side and A. It was like up and then hit B, B, and then A, or like there were like combo finishers like Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Can't remember if that was the ECW game or not, but I remember just like
It was.
being intensely disappointed in, I don't know how to do a finisher, and I can't do it without well, this is probably a great business model. I couldn't do it without the strategy guide,
Yeah.
Gee, do you think that was deliberate?
Yeah, no doubt, eh?
But I mean, yeah, it was so frustrating. And I just remember picking up those controls for some of those other games, and it was like anybody could sit down and like pick these things up, and they would just, cause yeah, you'd have like a spirit meter, and okay, cool, I just have to wiggle the joystick now to do the finisher. Sweet, done. Or go the other direction to steal the other guy's finisher, which I absolutely loved to death. But I said that's what I remember is like there was no having to study the manual, or there was no having to get all the cheat sheet guides and all that stuff in order to be able to just figure out how to do basic stuff in the game. And that's why I always thought that the No Mercy style of game was always like the best,
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprising that 10 years later, still to this day, no other company, even the well-funded developers with publishing deals, get it. I don't understand how they don't get it. You had the Midway doing the TNA game, and they get the Backyard Wrestling games, and even Ukes. Ukes I think is obviously, I can't talk smack about them. I think they do an awesome job now, but even they tend to overcomplicate or oversimplify and never really find that sweet spot. So.
Yeah, well, they talk about how games these days has kind of been they've been dumbed down, I guess, to the point where if you ever, we should post a link in the show notes where they have somebody did a mock-up or like a design doc, like if Super Mario Brothers came out today, and they would go through like all these tutorial screens on like having to turn left, just go right, and like, hey, here's a mushroom. This is like all these little dialogue boxes, and then after you finish the level, you get all these achievements that pop up and stuff, and it's totally like that now,
Oh yeah, totally. Now, hopefully, the fact that we don't have a whole lot of information going on screen is going to be, cool, and people aren't going to be lacking the on-screen tutorials or the, very extensive HUD or anything. So, yeah, I know exactly.
I think we've talked from day one that I think what our vision of and everybody who has ever followed us, or we know what the gold standards of games are for wrestling. We know like and what each one, their strengths and weaknesses, and like I said, I think if we just kind of put those gold standards out there, that this is the journey, this is what we're trying to get to, and that whatever we release with Uprising is like that first step,
Yeah, I mean, we have to eat a lot of crap, because obviously when we started the project, I had to speak up and say how we were going to make a No Mercy killer in our first game, even though we were a bunch of idiots who didn't know what we were doing and had enough money to maybe make the menu from No Mercy work, right? Whatever. But the option was either A, quit and go away, which a lot of people probably would have expected us to do or want us to, or just keep trying, and finish whatever the hell game we can with what we've got. And that's what we've done with Uprising, right? Is we're going to release our first tiny little slice of what we want to make for a great big wrestling game, and hope that enough people look at it and go, yeah, you know what? I kind of like the way they punch, grapple, and fly off the ropes and submit. I hope they make another one. I mean, a lot of people are going to say this sucks.
It's the foundation. Dude, it's the foundation. It's a foundation, man. It's what we've all been talking about from day one, is that this thing is going to, it's the first step in the journey, man. We know where their mountain is, and we just said it's the first step in the journey. It's a foundation, and so we'll give it a whirl, brother.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, man, I'm about 2 minutes away from losing my internet connection. So, leave you with that, and then, yeah, good chat, man. Good talk.
Well, remind people to leave some comments in on YouTube and all that stuff, and give us, tell us what your favorite memories are, because we're dying to know of all this stuff, because we can't be alone in these little mark out moments with these video games. So we're dying to know. I know that people out there share a lot of the exact same favorite memories we do with all these
crazy old wrestling games too. And I know there's people out there who know exactly what I mean when I talk about unlocking Andre. Come on, everybody knows what I'm talking about there. It took me 3 weeks and a couple of late nights, man. But yeah, great chat. Thank you very much. Hope everyone listening didn't fall asleep or whatever, get too angry. And we'll keep doing this.
Let us know if you want more.
Yeah.
Let us know if you want more.
Please validate my existence. Yes. So great. Talk to you later.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.